Our world is a poorly designed game. Encounter there are no rules and no goal. Sora and Shiro, brother and sister, think so. In the online game under the pseudonym Empty, they are an invincible duo, but in reality they are two idlers. After another raid, Shiro and Sora receive a letter from an unknown user who invites them to play chess. They understand that on the other side of the screen is not a written program, but a living person. Having won in a tense struggle, they again receive a letter in which many questions await them. Even in their slight surprise, they couldn't say no. After the sounded consent, the reality around changed in one moment. And now they are no longer in their room, but fly at incredible speed from a gigantic height to the ground. The world around is completely unknown, and they understand that they will soon break. Suddenly, a guy in a bright outfit joins their flight. He introduces himself as Theta and says that he is the god of this world. It was with him that Sora and Shiro played chess. Teto begins to list the 10 rules of his world, but all that worries the brother and sister at the moment is that they are about to die. And then they fall without getting hurt. Teto invited them to change the world in which they were transported and speaks of their re-imminent meeting. So our heroes find themselves in a new world, yet unknown to them. At first, Sora and Shiro don't know what to do. But they quickly adapt, since everything in this world is solved with the help of games. Suddenly, a certain girl sitting at the table calls them. As a result, their conversation ends with a challenge, and the bet on the part of Shiro and Sora is their complete submission to the winner, while the opponent gave money if he lost. Brother and sister won. They rent a room in a hotel. In the evening, they suddenly knock on the door. The girl behind the door turns out to be Steph, one of the participants in the card fight that took place in the tavern. Before taking the number, Sora told her that her opponent was not playing fair. The guest begins to blame Sora, since he did not help her in the game. He did not tell everyone that she was cheating, because in this case the player who played dishonestly automatically loses. As Sora and Shiro found out, Steph is the granddaughter of the deceased king, and she played with Kurama on who will become the next ruler. Sora says that she dishonors the name of the former king, and since her grandfather raised her, both he and she are stupid people. Sora makes Steph fall in love with him. Next, the action is transferred to the palace, where Steph dresses them in new clothes and goes to prepare tea and cookies. Returning to the room, she discovers them on the balcony. Sora says that Elkia, the city they are in, is too empty and lifeless. Steph tells them about the humanity and other races, and explains the rank system. Steph then shows them the home library. Sora quickly understands the new language, much to Steph's surprise. After a while, walking through the corridors of the castle, they meet with Kurami, who tries to humiliate Steph, but Sora does not allow it. After the meeting, he and Shiro decide to prove Steph's grandfather was absolutely right. Sora's goal is to become king. During the Kurami's coronation, the Hollows challenge her, simultaneously throwing accusations of fraud at her, namely, victory with the help of an elf. Kurami accepts the challenge. Since Sora and Shiro are challenged, it is Kurami who chooses the game by following the 10 rules of this world. This game turns out to be chess, but not simple. The figures have their own will. The pieces will follow orders as long as the ruler has the charisma, leadership, and potential of a king. Shiro enters the fight first. However, she ceases to cope and her brother comes to her aid. He inspires warriors and turns the game into an after-battle experience. Kurami feels that she needs the help of magic. Sora, realizing that he is in a difficult situation, goes to the trick, which he succeeds. He asks someone else's queen to go over to their side, enticing her with speeches. The battle on the chessboard continues, and so Sora takes decisive action, and this leads him to victory. Sora and Shiro are now the official contenders for the throne. However, a problem arises. There can only be one king. Then they decide to compete with each other. After the fight, it turns out that there can be several representatives, thus Sora and Shiro become the king and queen of the country of humanity. At the ceremony, Sora manages to inspire a people who have almost lost all hope for a happy future. Then the god Teto comes to Sora and Shiro. Sora and Shiro hint that Teto called them not to save Immonite, but to arrange a rematch between them, because God lost them in chess. Sora and Shiro were right. At the end of the conversation, they understand that by challenging God in this world and defeating him, they themselves can become gods. In the next episode, Steph is trying to get Sora and Shiro to work, doing state affairs, solving the problems of citizens and the city. However, they get stuck in gadgets from their world all day long. In the end, Steph decides to challenge them. And of course he loses. Her punishment is to be their dog all day. After getting rid of them, Sora and Shiro learn from Steph that she has already dealt with most of the troubled nobles. They fall into a little shock, as they considered her stupid in terms of state affairs in games. After a while, they go out into the city with Steph with ears and a ponytail, as they lost, and the walk was the second part of their desire. Steph decides that it is necessary to arrange a game of pure luck. However, she still loses, as Sora and Shiro understand how to calculate the steps and make the right next move. So the day goes by, at the end of which Shiro asks Steph about where at least one library is located, since they have read all the books that Steph gave them and did not find any information about other races there. And how to defeat the enemy, if you are not aware of what his strengths and weaknesses are. Correctly. No way. At that moment, Steph realizes that they were not idling, but were looking for information and trying to get to know the city and the world in general. They decide to play with her and return the source of knowledge to this city. Going to the library, they learn that the Flugels only play one game, somewhat reminiscent of words. On her part, in case of loss, they take the library and I may wish to fulfill any of their requests. If Sora and Shiro lose, they give away 40,000 books from the world stored on the tablet. The essence of the game is that all the words that they pronounce must denote an object that exists in reality, and each next word must begin with the last letter of the previous one. Sora and Shiro were prepared. They wrote down the word in advance and thanks to this one by making the last move. Thus, Jibril hands over the library and vows to serve Sora as its new master. Then we are transported back to the castle, where Sora and Shiro learn about the beast-like people who live in the eastern lands. From the story of Jibril, we learn that in the country of animal-like people there was an internecine war for a long time, until a certain priest appeared who put an end to disagreements and united the clans of animal-like people, thereby forming one of the largest states. Sora talks about wanting to play with them. However, Jibril says that neither the elves nor the Flugels could beat them and no one remembers what the game was, because if they won, the enemy forgot what they played. Jibril decides to show who has been challenging the Beastmen over the past few years. She teleports everyone to the Beastmen embassy in Elkia. It turns out that the embassy is Elkia's former palace and for the past 10 years they have been the only ones who have challenged the Eastern Federation, causing Elkia to lose half of the land. Upon learning this, Sora quarrels with Steph, saying not nice things about the former king. Bringing her to tears, he realizes that he jumped to conclusions. He is trying to find an answer. Why did the former king step on the same rake 8 times? Why? Jibril tells his master that not all people are as smart as he is. Sora disagrees with her and talks about how people have potential and he believes in humanity. The entire conversation is overheard by Steph, who then decides to give Sora and Shiro the key that the king gave her. So they get into the secret room and find out that the king recorded all the games with the Wormen and knows some loopholes. And after all these secrets, they were able to restore all the lost lands. Thank you for watching me so far. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, like and press the bell so as not to miss new videos. AniDay was with you. Bye everyone.